Hello, 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 hello. It's exciting to come your way once again. This is People Who Inspire, and I'm excited to have yet another guest who is going to share his journey with us. And also today we mainly are focusing on the topic on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So I'm excited, really. I've looked forward to today's episode for quite some time now. So, for everyone who has tuned in, welcome to People Who Inspire, PWI for short. And as I do every weekend, I try to have a conversation with my guests, and they share a bit of their life story with us, and they also tackle a topic that is really dear to them. So, welcome. My special guest today is Gameli Adzaho. So, welcome, Gameli. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Prince. Thank you very much for the opportunity to join your show. I've been following it a little bit, and I really like the title, People Who Inspire. And yeah, thanks for fancying me among the people who inspire.
Awesome, awesome. I mean, it's I always say that really it's about the journey for me when we consider topics around success and how we are able to foster a society that brings meaning to everyone. There's always the opportunity to talk to people whom I personally believe that they are on the right track, as far as either their careers are concerned, their companies are concerned, or as far as the aspirations are concerned. So I'm actually privileged to be speaking with you today, and I'm looking forward to a great discussion as well. And I'm going to kickstart the conversation really about. I'm sure there are a lot of people watching who probably have seen you online, talking passionately about science. When did your love for science, really begin? Can you walk us through a bit of your background, and at what point did you realize, I'm going to pursue this whole thing? Because some of us were running away from science, growing up. So I'm wondering, how did you get into it, and maybe a bit about, how you grew up and what your educational background is so far.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, as my name says, I'm Ewe. So I come from Volta region. I come from Tegbi. So in near Keta. I think currently is in Anglo district. They've restructured the district, but yeah, always I come from Keta. And yeah, I went to school nearby. So I went to a private school when I was a kid, primary and JSS, Amazing Love School. And when I was in JSS, I would say I was a good student. It was a nice school, and they engaged us on a whole lot of topics. We had library period. We had all kinds of competitions and games and things in the school. So it was a very good intellectual environment for people to grow up in. And when I was in JSS, preparing to transition to secondary school, obviously you have to choose a course. I was interested in all kinds of things, of science, of course, social studies. That was one of my favorite subjects. And I was also one of the top students in English and stuff like that. And so obviously it was even difficult to choose one. And so I had to choose science to kind of increase my options. At least when later on you want to change your field, it's much easier to change. So that's why I ended up studying science, I think.
Yeah.
From my JSS, I then went to secondary school. I went to Keta Secondary School, Keta School. I think now it's becoming a very popular school. But when I was
Ketasco in the house.
yeah, shout out July. When I was in SS, it was still a very good school, very popular in my area, to be honest. Maybe just not as popular in a larger country. And my dad really wanted me to go there as well. So whilst a lot of my colleagues were going to the fancy films and the presex and the St. Augustine's and all kinds of, I had to go to Ketasco. And even my friends used to tease me for it when we were JSS, but well, fast forward, I went there. I was in the science department. It was quite nice. I mean, it was quite different from my JSS in terms of the approach to teaching and learning. Some advantages, some disadvantages from when I was a student. But then a lot of our seniors, they did very well in their final exams, and there were a lot of seniors that we looked up to. We learned a whole lot from them. So, of course, these people go ahead and do very well in their final exams, and so of course you realize that you have no option really than to do very well as well. And so we did our best. Just to kind of touch on a few things, kind of like just give a little bit of a background. When I was in secondary school, apart from my studies in the science department, I was also quite active in our science and maths club, for example, and then the writers and debaters club.
Okay.
I remember when I was in the second year, I was invited to join the school's debating team. So of course, in the final year, I ended up being actively involved. So for me, from when I was young, there was always this connection between science as a field of study and then arts as a way of expression and as a way of creating these connections and bridges between people to solve things. So I think that connection was, I saw that connection quite earlier on in my life. And I also became interested in tech. I mean, my school, for example, when I started secondary school, I mean, we had a computer lab. These days it's an ICT lab. We didn't have the internet, but you had to go for classes to be taught how to use a computer and how to do this and that. And so I also developed a lot of interest in that. So I spent a lot of time in the computer lab, and I was very close to a computer teacher. So he allowed me to come around at certain times to,
Okay.
teach the technology. And then we had something called Current Affairs, where every Thursday, the whole school comes together as a group, and then we have to do something intellectual but separate from our normal studies. So, for example, we can have somebody come to lectures, or at that time they had this thing called diversity implementation. I remember we had somebody from one of the state institutions come and lecture us on what does it mean when government is trying to do diversity. What does it mean for the economy? We asked a lot of questions. We used to do debates, inter-class debates. We used to do quizzes. We used to read news, both the actual news and made-up news on campus.
Wow.
We used to do discussions. Yeah, sometimes we do discussions about topical issues. The students themselves are part of that process. So I was very actively involved in that as well. So those are kind of like some of the things that shaped me in my early days in secondary school. And after leaving Kita school, I then went to the University of Ghana to study for a degree in biological sciences.
Okay.
Ended up with I did my first degree in biochemistry, and then basically that's it. My background, my education. I think that's what that you were asking. And then okay, talking about education, just to kind of round up my education. After my university studies, I also worked. I worked in different areas. So I started off as a research assistant for my national service. I went into tech entrepreneurship. I was in MEST, Meltot Entrepreneurial School of Technology, as an entrepreneur in training for a while. And then somehow found myself back in my former school as a teacher. So between 2010 and 2013, I was a science teacher in Kita school. I was teaching chemistry, integrated science. It was quite fun. And I'm sure we can delve more into some of these things later. And then I then left, and then I did my master's in environment and human health at the University of Exeter through the Talogroup Scholarship Scheme. And that was also quite an interesting experience. I can also go into a little bit more details about the approach to exploring the interconnections between the environment, human health, and how you can look at certain models to kind of like begin to look at how we think about things like delivering healthcare in a different way from what we are normally used to. And Yeah, and then since I came back from doing my master's, I've been in Ghana for the most part, and trying to be involved as much as I can, both in a formal capacity and in voluntary capacity. And so that's a very long introduction, but hopefully I've set the tone for exploring different topics and exploring different ideas.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Gameli, for that. So, which is quite interesting to me because it seems as though you are someone who is very versatile. Looking at your background, because you mentioned that you were in the debates, you joined the debates club, you joined, various other clubs in school. So, my understanding would be that you are kind of someone who is well-rounded, as far as topical issues are concerned, and I think that is one thing that education in Ghana kind of also exposes you to, because I remember I had a similar experience, having done other things apart from the course that I was reading. You mentioned something in respect of your master's in University of Exeter. So if you compared your experience, and I'm guessing it was a 1 year master's program. So if you compare that experience with what you've had in Ghana, right? Would you see any key differences between the two, right? What are some of the pros and cons of the education you had in Exeter, or the approach vis-a-vis the education you've had in Ghana? Are there any strong, let's say, pros and cons you would want to highlight?
To be honest with you, I'm not the best person to answer this question, comparing education in Ghana versus comparing education elsewhere. The reason being that I've been very fortunate, in my department, biochemistry at the University of Ghana, they trained us really well. I mean, for example, if you mention the name of Dr. Gameli, it's like one name that everybody who has ever studied biochemistry in Lagos knows. And all the other lecturers, Antia, Professor Damofio, Dr. Klu, I remember many of them, Dr. Gbeonyo. There are people who really took us through that training to, be on top of what we did, apart from the knowledge, the content that we were studying at the time, our ability to write proper lab reports, our ability to present the science that we're doing, the whole process that we went through our projects. In our department, we had seminar. In that seminar, we also interfaced a lot with scientists from different parts of the world and people from industry, etc. And so that kind of already prepared me to be quite versatile and quite independent. Obviously, my background from Keta was also a big influence as well. And so a lot of the things that people complain about our graduates in Ghana, the typical biochemistry graduate from Lagos didn't have those issues. And so it's sometimes difficult to really compare, the typical Ghanaian scenario versus what pertains elsewhere. But basically, having gone through that and having gone through MEST as well, and before doing my master's, what I would say is that studying abroad, at least studying in the UK or studying at the University of Exeter in my program, involved a lot of independent study. So you go to lectures, I think 2 days in a week. It's more of a seminar style. We study in modules. Okay. And you basically have one module the whole day. You have people coming to lecture you on different topics within that module. And then you have a lot of readings that you have to do on your own. And you have to kind of choose what you want to focus on for your assignments, and you have to choose what you want to focus on for your dissertation, and kind of independent-minded, and you are not very good with exploring your own path, trying to learn things on your own based on your interest, and basically motivating yourself to do what you're supposed to do. You realize that yes, when the deadlines are you have not been able to deliver anything. And of course, you can find yourself in a situation where you haven't even learned much or as much as you should. Meanwhile, you have your lecturers there, they are available. You can go to them, you can ask them questions, you can have discussions with them, etc. It's just kind of different from our typical what you'd say will be the typical learning context in Ghana, and you must be really prepared for it, because as brilliant as you are, you may end up struggling. Even in my master's, I struggle sometimes. So you may end up struggling to achieve. And So that's like, those are like some of the key differences. Studying in a country like the UK, there's so much to gain from the wealth of um, the knowledge in the people who are there, their experiences, etc. But it's also possible for so much time to pass without you not gaining anything, because you haven't figured out how to extract that from the human resource available. And so, yeah, initiative, effort, passion, how do you call it? Having that pursuit, that spirit of pursuit, really, it's really important in a scenario like that.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I mean, in terms of the fact that sometimes I think there's a tendency for us to downplay the let's say the quality of education we receive in Ghana. I personally, I always say this, that one of the best decisions that I ever made in my life was to have my master's at the KNUST School of Business. It was, for me, like, the quality of the lecturers, right? I mean, we did not have everything, of course. Every educational system has its shortcomings, but the kind of foundation that I got, right, at KNUST, has been the best decision ever for me in terms of my master's, right? So sometimes there's the tendency, and this always happens, where people try to downplay almost everything about the education they've received in Ghana, but it's not really the entire case. Now, you went to the Meltwater Entrepreneurial School of Technology, and from my understanding, normally before you get into the school, you should have had some form of a business idea, or like a startup idea, or sometimes when you get there, they can pair you with someone to start a company or something like that. What was the idea behind going into MEST at the time?
Yeah, very, very crazy. It's sometimes really difficult to explain and connect all of these things. I don't know how the recruitment process is right now. I haven't been in touch with MES for ages, so I don't know what you know and how that compares with yeah, my own experience. But basically, at that time, I was about to be done with my national service. I was like 20, 21 or 22 years, very young. And obviously, you have done with your education and done with your national service in Ghana. What do you do next? You are trying to find jobs and things. And you know how the system is really difficult to find something to do with your time. I was already interested in technology. Yeah, since I was in secondary, even from JSS as well. So I thought, obviously, I saw an ad in the newspaper. I was talking to some of my friends, and it was about teaching people how to become software entrepreneurs. You learn how to program, start your own business, etc. So when I saw that, I was like, why not? Let me check. I was trying to get into graduate programs also alongside. So I was like, let me check the website and apply, go through the process and see how it goes. And then, yeah, for whatever reason, because a lot of the people are applying to that program, like you said, it's something about tech entrepreneurship. So the typical profile of the people who apply are people who have either studied technology, they are already programmers and doing all kinds of things. So people who have business degrees, and so they are going to become business leaders. So they are not, most of the time, they are not people like me. But then again, looking at the ad, it was open to everybody. It's irrespective of your degree. They encourage everybody to apply. So obviously, I did apply. And then I think what they did after that was that they screen the applications. You have to write some essays and some other things, and then they invite you to come for an assessment. So you have to write a test, the normal aptitude test, and also they have tests to measure your spatial skills and your design skills and all kinds of tests. And at that time, too, mind you, I was not very experienced in these things, so I didn't even know what these tests were. I was just taking a test,
Yeah.
And then we got called back to do a group interview. So it was fun, group interview. They give you all kinds of topics to discuss with people in a group, all kinds of activities. They're observing you, and then I passed it again. Another group interview, and then a one-on-one interview, which was like grilling, very, very grilling session. and then somehow got accepted into it. So that was it. At that time, you didn't have to have a specific idea, but what they did was that they asked a lot of questions about problems in Ghana or problems in your community and how you think technology can help to solve it. You didn't need to demonstrate anything specifically in terms of technology, but just to show how you think through problems and how you think. And so that's how I found myself in MEST. In fact, majority of my colleagues were people with that business or tech background or other things. But there were a few of us. I think myself, somebody like Edward Tego, Ninai, these were people that was in my first group.
Oh yeah, I remember Edward Tego.
All of these people didn't have that background. So yeah, there were people like me as well. So yeah, that was how I found myself in MEST at the time.
Okay, and I think that people like Edward Tego, I think is in Nandi Mobile. He co-founded Nandi Mobile or something like that. I remember.
Exactly,
that's quite and you know, when I think about innovation, now we are getting a bit into the topic for today, right? When I think about innovation in Africa and across the world, one thing that I know is indispensable is the critical role that STEM education plays in actually kind of preparing the next generation to be innovators. I mean, if we think about anywhere in the world, whether from Europe to the United States, you realize that there is an underlying strong, foundation in science, technology, engineering, mathematics. And so you realize that by the time they get to the university, and this is why most of them tend to drop out. People think they just drop out for fun, like you talk about Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg and so forth. They are able to drop out because they are confident in the foundation they have. So there's a certain foundation which gives you a certain confidence at a certain level that says, yeah, I think I have enough to, do what I want to pursue. And so for me, the foundational essence of any innovation has to do with a strong STEM education. And this is where I think people like you have the experience. You come in because you've also taught, like you said, at guitar school. And first of all, let's go to the guitar school bit, and then we get into the innovation topic. What was the unique approach that you kind of deployed when you're teaching, I think you said chemistry in guitar school, right? Because I'm guessing that there's a reason why you wanted to teach, and that probably is linked with the innovation topic. But what is your motivation, first of all, to teach? And then also, what was that unique approach that you kind of used to get your students interested in chemistry? Because chemistry at the senior high school level is not easy. I'm not sure I can hear you now. It seems I can't hear you.
Sorry, I muted myself because there was
okay.
How do you call it? A prayer going on in the mosque in the background. So I wanted.
Okay. I can hear you now.
I was saying that chemistry at the senior high school level is one of the easiest subjects, and it's fun, and so a lot of people like it.
Pressure.
Yeah, I don't know.
Viewers, do you agree that chemistry is one of the easiest at senior high school? Please comment.
Oh no,
because the chemistry I remember, there are keys, alkynes.
Yeah, I think when I was in secondary school, I didn't get an A in chemistry in my final exam, but whilst I was in secondary school, it was one of my favorite subjects, and I enjoyed it. It was a favorite subject a lot of my friends. And if you want to use a data-driven approach, I think that you can look at the results from work, compare performance in chemistry against performance in the other science subjects. I have a feeling that chemistry would be the one with the top scores, with the highest scores. So that's what I'll use to back my how do you call it, my assertion. I know that especially when you just start your education at the first year, second year, it can be one of the most challenging subjects. A lot of people struggle to understand the really abstract concepts at the beginning, and that can, once you've lost your balance, that can go with you for a long part of your journey, and you end up losing track. Why did I become a teacher? I think that for me, I'd always been interested in education and teaching. It's quite strange because sometimes I tend to be reserved, but then at the same time, I also love interacting with people. I love ideas. I love exchanging with people, and so yeah, I always fancied myself to be a teacher at some point of my life. I remember when I was still in university for one of my long vacations, I volunteered with the Anglo Students Union to go and teach in a nearby school. I think it was Keta Business School. It was our rival school, but that was the school that was available. And I went I went to teach there as well. It was a fun experience. I did it with Dr. Carl Nuchuga right now at the time. And also when I finished university, whilst waiting for my national service posting, I also taught for 1 month in a school in Keta. So I always fancied the opportunity to be in education. But of course, in Ghana, from a practical or pragmatic point of view, it's not a career path a lot of people follow, unfortunately. And when I left MET, I had to leave MET because I didn't end up from the training phase of going through the entrepreneurial program to actually going into picture business. I didn't really make that transition. The reason being that it was in 2009. I had some issues, personal issues. I had in February. I remember I went out around Legon, and then there was some road construction stuff going on at the time, and I found myself into one of the ditches and broke my leg. And I had to go with my broken leg for many months. And it came with its own, how do you call that? Mental health issues and focused. I mean, I really pushed through to remain immersed and finish the first phase of the program, but I didn't transition to, going to form a business team and pitching and starting your company. So I had to look for a job, basically. And so you apply for jobs and you go for assessments and stuff like that. And I was in Accra for a while and was waiting for, I had positive signals from a particular company. I don't mention names, and it was just delaying. It was taking forever. And so the idea came from my family that, okay, why not, come home and teach? And as funny as that might sound, and of course, a lot of my friends in Accra obviously would not like the idea, try to discourage you. I was like, wow, yeah, that's a good idea. Because for me, I'd always wanted to, maybe continue my education again and do some other stuff. And I felt that being an educational environment will serve you well in terms of just being focused and maybe having some time for yourself to explore certain things you wanted to do. So I went ahead and applied to my former school, and thankfully they were happy to receive me. So that was how I ended up back in Kitasco to teach. What did I do differently? I'm not going to come here and pretend to be the person with all the smartest ideas in the world, but I wanted to teach chemistry, and happily I got the opportunity to do that. And so I know, like I said earlier, it can be challenging when it comes to the basics of the subject, and so many students struggle with that. And so one of the things I did was to try as much as possible to kind of use models and more of real world examples, to explain abstract concepts. Because, for example, you're talking about the atom, you're talking about bonding, structural things, just kind of like use funny examples and, those type of things to just kind of almost let people picture, what it is that you're trying to talk about, so that they can find their own way of relating topics or relating issues. And that way, through your own individual cognitive process that you're able to establish, you can be able to have some level of consistency in your approach to how you explain and understand things.
Because one thing is, I mean, passing exams, I think that's the easiest part of it. You know, the West African exams has been going on for ages. We have a lot of past questions, so people can go through the
Pasco.
past questions, get the solutions, familiarize themselves with them, chew the cough series or chew the gas, and then pass their exams. That's the easiest part. But to be able to really understand the science, to be able to understand what you're doing, and then apply that knowledge in different scenarios to explain phenomena, that's the basic level. And then maybe in the future, be able to use that to actually solve problems. Requires a different way of thinking. And so, for personally, for me, I always encourage. I use a discussion a lot in my classes. I did loads of examples. So one topic, there are so many examples you want to try right in the class. So we challenge people to answer these questions, explain themselves. We kind of identify the flaws in how they are approaching the explanation and try to offer alternatives to it, and that kind of thing. Those were some of the techniques. I remember I also used to give my student essays, not regularly, but I on occasion gave my students essays. Yeah, right. Yes. So, for example, we are talking about bonding, or we are talking about some other topic. I'll give you essays to write. Um, I wish I could remember even some of
Wow.
the specific examples, but I'll give you, for example, an artistic um, title, which on the surface
Okay. That.
looks
Okay.
completely different from what you are studying. But you and your group are supposed to go back,
From
reflect on what you are
yes.
doing, and then, first of all, maybe find a way of talking about that title and then link it to the topic, and then now use a scientific concept to explain what you are trying to come about and link it back to the title. And these were like things that were, at the time, they looked like waste of time, or they looked like maybe you are stressing the students and all of that. But it's just a way of forcing people to really think and
Yeah.
how do you call it? And yeah, forcing them to really think so that they can really understand what they are doing. One of the things I did was, I wasn't trained in education, so I always took the time and to really learn more about pedagogy, and just to kind of like understand certain things, look at examples from elsewhere, and use those examples to inform my own approach to doing things. um, I mean, the other thing to appreciate, and there's a lot of help that we can get from our curriculum, which is that there are different types of knowledge. Obviously there are facts. There's also understanding. There's also analytical thinking. There's also synthesis. There's also, so all of these things, as a teacher, when you're trying to impact students, or you're trying to build students, it's not just a matter of you, teacher, being a sage on the stage transmitting the knowledge to students. It's almost like trying to build the students up to become learners on their own, trying to build their ability to learn, and helping them to build all these types of skills that you want: analytical thinking, the ability to synthesize, problem solving, reflective thinking, all of these things. So as you are going through your lessons, as much as possible, what you want to do is help people, how do you call it, build this range of skills. Yeah. And to be honest with you, this is something that I was personally very passionate about. But even in Keta School, in the science, there were also other teachers in the school. For example, people talk a lot about Mr. Boate. He was also kind of very interested in some of these models, and trying to just approach learning from a completely different how do you call it, way, apart from the children poor. So that was like also very inspiring
Yeah.
to see, because then at the time when I was teaching Kitasco, many of my colleagues, I mean, we can talk about other people like Raymond Lawe, Adia, Courage Agbado, Fafanyo, Churchill, like all of these guys were like exceptional individuals in the sciences, and they were all really focused on not just writing exams and passing them, but trying to help students build the right skills. And I think that what then happens is that you almost begin to see a certain culture in that school that after many, many years, those practices will still remain, and those practices will still make a difference in the lives of people. But that's just about what we are trying to do in the classroom. What were we trying to do outside the classroom? Like I said, when I was in secondary school myself, I was highly involved in different clubs, the science club, the writers and readers club, etc. And then when I came back, of course, some of my old teachers were still in the school, and so they just got me involved. For example, I had to work with the debating club or the debating team for some of their competitions. So at times, finding my way, still working with the debating team. And one of the things I also tried to do was just to help open the eyes of my students and also my colleague teachers. When I say open their eyes, I'm no savior, but just kind of like having had the opportunity to go through an institution like MEST and be in the school and seeing how the world was changing, how everything was gravitating towards technology, and the fact that we are also in an era where there is an intense global competition at so many levels. And so it means that the students in the school are going to be competing with people from other countries. I took it upon myself to help initiate different programs and different projects in the school, which was thankfully accepted by the headmaster of the time, Mr. Sedan Kwao, who is unfortunately passed on. May his soul rest in peace. So at that time, we started all kinds of digital literacy programs, first with the students themselves, trying to expose them to technology and social media, trying to use it in a positive way, how to create content, blogging, video. And we are doing some of these things as far back as 2010, as far back as 2011. We also had the Kitasco Mobile project with the Austrian Network for ICT for Development. I also worked with people like Wala Lisenyo, Charles Amegaselon, where we had an expert from Austria, Dr. Margaret Grimus, Professor Margaret Grimus, to come in and do workshops for teachers and also workshops for students, and also collaboratively do workshops for teachers and students together. Again, exploring how do we integrate technology into teaching and learning at the senior high school level, and how do we make a transition to mobile learning in the school as well. And I mean, I'm just saying these things because I think that when we are talking about education, we're talking about learning. It's not just about what happens in the classroom during the school period. It's also about what the students or the learners use their time to do during their free times, the kind of projects that they engage themselves in, and what they expose themselves to, and how that influences the range of skills they develop.
True.
And how they then use that to participate in the world. And so I think that some of those initiatives around digital technology in the context of education obviously would have gone a long way to prepare the students and expose them, and help them to be ready for the kind of world that they found themselves. I think the final thing that I would like to say, so that I'll allow you to ask the questions, is I remember we also got a few of the students and also teachers actually involved in this bar camp initiative from Ghana Think Foundation. The first time we all went to Ho for bar camp Ho and stuff, and so that led to Ghana Think initiating the junior camps, which is also now present in different schools
Junior
in Ghana
camp,
now.
yeah.
In 2013, I believe that was when we organized the first junior camp, also right in Kitasco, junior camp, Kitasco. And I remember that in one of the bar camps that we went, we had also a conversation around science education and how to make it more sort of like less difficult, for want of a better expression, for students. And one of the things that we realized was just the fact that the study of science in the classroom was detached from the everyday realities of the students, their everyday lives at the time. And so one of the things that we did was we created this group on Facebook, because students were using social media anyway. Global Lab Ghana community, where I just had a bunch of my students join, and then I added my colleague teachers, and then I added friends who I knew were somehow in some shape or form involved in science and technology, as a platform, for example, for these students to be able to like ask questions or share something they are doing, especially when they are on holidays, and interact with people. And then they started adding their friends from other classes, and then they started adding people from other schools. Because I am no more in the secondary school context, so the group has evolved from what it was, which was a
Yeah.
platform encouraging high school students to learn, to be more or less like a community for STEM, for anybody interested in STEM. And now they say we shouldn't say STEM, we should say STEAM: science, technology, engineering,
Mm-hmm.
art, and
Still,
mathematics. So it's
yes.
evolved into a STEAM community where we as students and we as young professionals are then able to mobilize ourselves for social impact. So now we have a core of these old students from Keta and from other parts of the country, because a lot of our active members don't have anything to do with Keta School at all, to connect with each other, exchange knowledge with each other, learn from each other, build each other's capacity, exchange opportunities with each other, and then go out through our community action series into the how do you call it, society, and also run programs and activities, outreaches for kids in rural areas and other groups, to also get them excited about
Wow.
STEM and also participate in STEM. So there's this, although it's evolved organically, it's almost like a coordinated way of helping people to build their own capacity, learn, benefit, and then use some of the things they benefit to also connect and benefit other people. And it's been quite exciting, um, how some of these things have evolved. I think that for us to make a difference in education, the conversation is about schools, it's about the learners, it's about what's happening during those hours in the classroom, but also what's happening in between those hours in the schools. But definitely, if we really want to transform our society with science and technology, it's also about how the whole society itself perceives science, technology. How do they participate in it? It has to become a cultural product or a cultural experience, and that's what I am personally about. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you've actually nailed the point, because that was going to be my next question about, how you perceive the importance of ecosystems, right? Innovation ecosystems, because ultimately, and you already mentioned that the output of the STEM or STEAM agenda is to have some form of a product or service that is beneficial to society, where there's participatory, societal kind of involvement. And so, organizations like Ghana Think Foundation, the Impact Hub, Kumasi Hive, and all those organizations that are trying to kind of grow ecosystem, or like you rightly mentioned, the Global Lab Network, for example, and so forth. How important are these ecosystem entities, right, to advancing of innovation? Because the critical thing you mentioned that I haven't thought about is that the educating the youth on STEM or STEAM, we need to consider what they do with their time when they're outside the classroom. I never thought about it that way. So from this, let's say, trajectory, what is your thoughts on the importance of these innovation ecosystems that we are creating, especially in Ghana and Africa, to the whole agenda of kind of augmenting the innovation strength of African communities? Do you have any thoughts on why these ecosystems are important?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, ecosystems are important because all these groups, organizations, networks that we are forming, they come from a certain background. They have a certain ethos. They have certain philosophies behind them. They have certain personalities behind them. There are certain motivations behind them, and they have certain objectives behind them that they want to achieve. A lot of these overlap, which is brilliant, which is exciting. But if we want to achieve things on a grand scale, we have to be able to think together. We have to be able to collaborate on a bigger picture. We have to go beyond our individual organizations. We have to think more on the national scale. we have to think more on the regional or the continental scale, and we have to think also a lot more globally, and find ways of collaborating, find ways of working together to drive whatever agendas that we've outlined for ourselves. In the tech space in Ghana, for example, we see the example of people forming, for example, a network for the different tech hubs in Ghana. So that's like a brilliant way
Yes,
of
yes.
all these different groups together under one umbrella, because now they are able to like identify what are their own interests, what are their own priorities, and then they can be able to undertake advocacy. As individual organizations, we have our own audiences, and we have people who may listen to us individually and also at the grassroots level. But if we want to make big changes in terms of national policy, or we want to have people from the private sector, for example, to listen, coalition building becomes a very important element, to be able to undertake advocacy. The other thing to do is shared learning. A lot of the organizations, they've learned a lot, they know a lot of things, but then they might not necessarily be able to solve all the problems that they face. Meanwhile, somebody sitting somewhere has already solved those problems. And so by building these coalitions, we find a way of learning from each other and exchanging from each other. That's why we are trying to do that with Global Lab, but that's also at a really personal and micro level. To do that at a bigger level and at a more ecosystem level, that's where the connection between different organizations and different entities comes into play. Another thing that we face in our part of the world is that we don't have a lot of very good examples. Or even where we have the examples, they are not visible. So visibility is an issue, and replicability is also an issue. And so, yes, and from an ecosystem point of view, so that's why I'm using the tech hubs as an example of a way to solve this problem. From an ecosystem point of view, it becomes much easier to exchange technical capacity, exchange technical resources within the group. Maybe somebody somewhere can solve A or B, or to be able to attract external support, which then benefits the entire group rather than just a few entities or few organizations. So these are some of the reasons why we need to build ecosystems, and these are some of the this could basically be some of the objectives or some of the common things that at an organizational level that things like this can solve. I can give you another example. We've formed the Ghana STEM network, or we're in the process of forming a Ghana STEM network. Obviously, because the link between science and technology development and education sits more within thinking in terms of just a STEM framework, to do that. But again, there are so many entities involved in STEM education in Ghana, but all these big ecosystem problems that you might face that maybe one organization cannot easily solve, you can much more easily solve it through this network. At the global level, there's also this paradigm a lot of people are talking about these days called community science. The word open science is also thrown around a lot, but in Western academia, open science tends to mean open data and open access, where open data means readily having access to certain kinds of data that you want to use for a specific purpose, and open access means readily having access to published material that you can use, which means that when people do scientific research, you can access their publications, you can access the knowledge, and then it will be of benefit to you. And so this is what Western academia tries to fight for. But then when you think about it, when we are saying that we want science to be more open, we need not just data and access, but we also need access to infrastructure. We need access to funding. We need access to methodologies, because even the various protocols that people use in science, it's not all of them that are readily accessible to people. So we need access to that methodology as well.
Yeah.
And we need to think of ways in which we undertake communication, which is not just scholarly, but communication that can reach the larger public so that they can understand, they can participate. We need to actually get people themselves to be involved in the scientific research process. It's a phenomenon some people call citizen science, and now we are using this terminology of community science more. These are some of the ways that we can bridge gaps between the organizations that we are founding, or the institutions we are leading, and the general public, because civil society, because they are the ones who do a lot of advocacy and things like that. They need science in their work, because if I'm somebody who is against plastic pollution or against air pollution in my community, now we need to change our mindset, because we need to integrate data, we need to integrate evidence, and we need to integrate solutions into the kind of work that we do. And therefore, you need scientific to help you to do that. So we have to break all these silos. We talk a lot about industry, government, and academia. We need to also invite civil society on board. And the final, I want to say two main things, and then get back to you. So what we need to do in Ghana, for example, is that we have to be ready to break all the silos. These silos, there are too many silos in our ecosystem. So we need to be able to break the silos and work together much, much more. So that's one. Because the thing is that the people in the tech sector, they don't even interface so much with the people doing research in Ghana, which is rather unfortunate. And then also, of course, there's a lot of work that has been done on bridging the gap between research and business, which is good. But research and tech, we need to break those barriers. Tech and business, we need to break. Tech and business is very easy. They don't need any motivation for the barriers to be broken, because without your business will not go. We need to break all these different barriers. And also the civil society. Sometimes we don't think of civic society because we think because they don't bring money or they are not anything. But this is the basis of democracy. You want to transform society, the kind of structures that you build. Governance is very important. Without governance, we can't advance the STEM agenda. So that's why all of these alliances now have to emerge, And the final thing I want to say is that now I work for Just One Giant Lab. So I just want to mention Just One Giant Lab, which is this platform for enabling community science and innovation around the world. We just had our first summit last week, called the Just One Giant Summit. And basically what we are trying to do at the global level and also at the regional level increasingly is to create this digital platform and community where anybody who is doing anything related to science and technology to advance the sustainable development goals can actually come on our platform, use the tools that we've created to advance their projects, but also to be part of our community, participate in our community, learn from each other, and share resources with others, benefit from other people, etc., to advance science and innovation. And we really need this community approach to doing things, whether locally, regionally, or globally, because that is how we can begin to solve problems. And in Just One Giant Lab, for example, we have a very good case study with the Open COVID-19 initiative, where a bunch of individuals and labs from around the world have managed to create solutions pertaining to making more PPEs, coming up with cheap diagnostics for COVID, and also trying to build certain types of medical equipment to advance to challenge the impact of COVID. And it's been quite successful, looking at that model. But the main thing to pick here is that there are also other big challenges. Climate change is an issue. I already talked about plastic pollution. There are all kinds of challenges that are important to Ghana or that are important to the entire world. And that's why that ecosystem approach and that coordinated approaches and all these new models that we are talking about, we need to roll them out to be able to handle these challenges.
Yeah. And thanks, Gameli, for that, because this is a very comprehensive response that you have given. And I think for those of you watching, he's touched on very salient points. I think for me, it's critical that we are able to form that critical mass. You said the organization that is creating the platform is called Just One Giant Lab? Just One
Giant Lab, yeah. Or Jogo.
Okay, just one Giants Lab. Okay. So for those of you watching, and can people find you on social media or a website or anything like that?
Yes, I'll give you the URL, and then maybe you can share with your followers. The website
Okay, I've
is
seen it in the chat. Okay.
the website is app.jogo.io. App.jogo.io. Yeah.
And how's the for example, is it membership based? Is it, or like anyone like myself, I can just, show up and then register or something? How does it function? How does it
Exactly.
work?
It's free for anybody in the world to join. It's just like, in a way, it's like Facebook for people working on science projects. If that's a good way to say it. I think, is it possible to share my screen? I don't know. Yeah, but basically, what I want to say is that it's a platform where you can just create your personal profile, and then if you have a project you want to share, you can create a project, and you can list if you have certain needs for your project. Let's say you are doing a project on processing plastics, and then you need a place to work, like a maker space to work. You can put it in your needs, and so maybe if there's somebody on the platform who also has a maker space in your community and can host you, they will then respond to that need. You can explore different projects, so there are tons of projects on the platform, so you can explore it and select and follow those projects. And if you want to volunteer for those projects, or they have needs already, you can also respond to those needs. And if you're an organization, we have a feature called Spaces that you can sign up for. And the space allows you to display multiple projects at the same time, and also to create certain activities to engage your audience. So it's an interesting platform. We also have a Slack channel. So in the Slack channel, you can also talk more to people who are already active in the community. And so that's one way of bringing all the different entities, all the different how do you call it, all the different organizations and entities under one umbrella. So for example, when we did the Just One Giant Summit, we had loads of organizations from around the world, and also individuals from around the world who are working on various projects to share their work and exchange and learn from each other. And it was quite nice. Yeah.
I think this is brilliant, and I think this is what I've been trying to kind of really champion also. I mean, this is awesome, because for those of you watching, please, this is the website you can see on the screen, Juggle. So you can go to app.juggle.io, and then you can see this website I'm currently showing on the screen. Like Gameli said, this is whatever project, STEM or STEAM project you're working on, you can use this website to get tools, also to be part of the community. So they are actually very interesting, from my point of view, very interesting tools on the Juggle website. So community contribute, create, if you are doing any form of projects. And then they also have some featured items that, I think this is awesome. And how long ago did you start this with your team?
So how do you call it? I've forgotten the word that people normally use, but I'm not the founder of this. This is an international platform, which was which came out in 20. I think it was officially launched 2019. 2019.
Okay.
But the idea behind it has been in existence a little bit before that. I have been involved with Jogo from November of 2020. Yes. and I work there also as a regional program manager. So some of the ideas I advanced in the during the discussion, I try to implement that also at the regional level. And so I started the Jogo Africa initiative. Yeah, since we launched it in July of 2021. And since then, we have started an initiative specifically focused on addressing antimicrobial resistance, which is that how do we reduce the incidence of antimicrobial resistance, because people misuse antibiotics and they are not as effective as they used to be. Meanwhile, we are unable to produce many antibiotics. We started a small pilot project to build capacity of students and lab technicians around that, and then hopefully we are looking to scale this to develop more projects and more interventions around that. And also we have a monthly Africa regional activity or event where we do discussions around different topics. So for example, the last session we talked about prototyping and digital fabrication with an expert who is from Nigeria as well. So it's quite an interesting community we are building. But the key thing I want to say in the spirit of our discussion is the importance of collaboration. So we are very, very keen on collaborating with people to write proposals, to also brainstorm and try to create programs that would help address some of the most important challenges that we face. So I talked about antimicrobial resistance being one of the topics we've been working on. So if you are into that field, please feel free to get in touch with me. But we are also interested in addressing other things, for example, plastic pollution, anything pertaining to climate pollution, water. So it's up to you as well. Any big ideas you have, and if you want a partner, whether you are a researcher in a university or you are a startup or you are an individual, we are happy to engage and explore parts of collaboration.
Thank you for sharing this, Gameli. So for those of you watching, asking for the link, that is the link, app.joggle.io, app.joggle.io, and it's on the screen, so you can easily check out the website. Thank you for sharing that. So I think that for today's discussion, we can look at some of the comments that people have sent through and the questions, and then we can probably wrap up. So I'm going to check some of the comments and the questions that people have sent through. So okay, so we have comments from LinkedIn as well. So Joshua says, fantastic. Thanks, Joshua, for joining. Joshua Mauto. We also have another comment from LinkedIn, from Aaron, and then someone called Love Clinic Channel. He said he's watching from Takwa, so that's nice. We also have Rita Dugbenu, also commenting from LinkedIn. We have Elom. Oh, Elom, hey, Elom Billy, Charlie, long time. Yeah, he was. I think this was when you mentioned about the rivalry you had. Yeah, so he said rivalry. Yeah. We also have Joshua Mauto saying that chemistry was not that much difficult as compared to biology. So, okay, you scored some points there, Gameli. You scored some points there. So Amaki also, Amakai says from Facebook is watching. He said, I'm enjoying the program. Someone also, Grace Mpoyi is watching from DRC. Thanks, Grace, for joining on Facebook. Yes, there are lots of comments, and also Rita saying this, that institutional learning and membership is the way to go in raising graduates for innovative and entrepreneurial maybe ventures she means. So this is true, Rita. We fully agree with you. Dropping gems. Okay, so alum again, and Rita said, okay, same question, same contribution. That a community of shared learning helps in changing systems and structures to achieve better educational outcomes. So this is really that I think this is very let's say nice contributions that we've had so far. And the one last thing in terms of the ecosystems and contributions, I think you mentioned, Gameli, that africaosh.com is also one website that, for those of you watching, you can visit this website, africaosh.com. And then so you can visit this. I know about Africa Osh as well, so you can visit just to also be part of what is happening as far as these ecosystems are concerned. So would you have any final words as far as the topic of STEM and STEAM? Maybe you can finalize your words by, I'm thinking a parent is watching this, right? And they are saying, okay, so why do we have arts, in the whole mix now, right? So maybe you can wrap up around that discussion on why art has been included in STEM to make it STEAM, just to educate maybe parents and viewers who might be wondering why arts has been added.
Yeah, before I go on to say this, just allow me to diverge a little bit. When I was talking,
Yes, sure.
especially about my experiences in Keta, I think I didn't really have I didn't really have an opportunity to talk about the students that I met there, and I'm just saying this just to kind of contextualize the discussion, and just to also for people to see that I'm not just saying things because it's cool to come on air and say all these cool things, but conversations with some of them, after all these years, shows you just how much some of the exchanges that we've had with them. And that's why I said that it's not also just about everything formalized programs. They are important, but just kind of building that community and mentorship directly goes a long way to make a difference. I have some of my former students who are heads of UX and UI who are doing amazing stuff with data science. There are some who are already studying PhDs in different universities abroad, and some already operating within government, in leadership
Wow.
positions across board. And when you talk to them, and this is something that many of them say, they talk about the influences that they've had, for example, in that Ketasco environment where they were allowed to think from an interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary perspective, and they had the confidence and they had the opportunity to try things, and that has gone a long way to help them in their careers in what they are doing today. And also just, I know that last year Science and Maths quiz and then Ketasco was all over the place, and a lot of people were talking. A lot of people,
Charlie, the squad.
a lot of people were like, it's like this is maybe the first time they've heard of the school, and then they are so outstanding. But I can tell you that what you've seen, yes, it's true. Maybe that was the first time in the finals, but this school has been consistently, for example, been in the semifinals for the past 4 or 5 years. If you're really following, you would have seen that.
Yeah.
And even before that, without those visible signs, a lot of activity, a lot of things were happening in that school. And this is not my credit at all. If I have any credit at all, it's just being a small cog in the wheel at some point in time. But the idea is that building that landscape, building that connections between the older generation and the younger generation, between doing and learning, it's very important if we want to make any difference. And also, finally, just between our institutions and the society. And so, to answer your question, why do we have to put arts in STEM? For me, it's already part, and so that's why sometimes I tend to say STEM and I still forget about the A. I still say STEM, but I don't say STEM. It's already embedded, hardwired in my mind, but just for the benefit of the general public. The thing is that um, we need science and technology. Science and technology's approach to resolving issues is systematic, it seems systematic, methodological, etc. But to be able to solve some of the problems, you can't use the same way that you think about things every day to solve the problem. So you need creativity. So allowing people to interface with things like design and with the arts helps them to build their creative skills, which means that they can be able to address scientific questions better from a different angle. This is one of the reasons why a lot of people talk about having more Africans in science. So if you take an initiative like the next Einstein Forum, for example, the belief is that we have not been a big part of the scientific realm for a long time. And so when you're bringing Africans to science, we are having a different perspective of looking at problems. And therefore, we are more likely to be the ones helping to come up with the best solutions going forward. So that art gives you that multi perspective, different way to think about the world. And that's very, very, very important. Another point that I just want to use quickly, since we've far past our time, is the fact that whatever we are doing, science is not supreme. As much as even those of us in science would like to think, we can't say science is supreme. It is society that is supreme. And so, if what we are doing has to benefit the society, we need some level of humanism within what we are doing, so that the science can be responsive to the needs of the society. So that when we create wealth, for example, we don't leave some people behind in the wealth by creating bigger wealth gaps, but there's a humanism in formulating the kind of solutions that we are coming up with. That the issues that we address are the important issues, because even determining which issues we want to focus on is a political issue. It's not a scientific issue as such. So that's where the arts and the science comes together, because even determining the issues, it goes beyond science. And also in delivering that solution, the communication part, the societal part, etc., etc., all of that, all of that, it's also what very, very crucial in addressing the issues that we face. And so these are some of the reasons why the emphasis on art to be included in STEM, to make it STEM, is very, very important. And so for all of us who are practitioners, please keep that at the back of your minds. We need to be able to reach the larger society, and it's art that will help us to bridge that gap.
And if for those of us watching, if there's any lesson at all, and I like that statement you made, that we always think science is supreme, but society is supreme. So I think that is really crucial, that we don't leave the larger society behind, all in the name of advancing science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. So thank you, Gameli. It's been really awesome having to have a chat with you. And I would like to also thank each one of you who joined the discussion, and also for sending your contributions and your questions and all that. I truly appreciate for you for being part of today's show. So I wish you the very best of week, and I'll come your way another week, next week, God willing, with the next episode of People Who Inspire. So have a nice week ahead, and I would say bye-bye for now.